This guy was prosecuted and convicted for having brought a unfathomable 400 tons of cocaine into the United States.
I'm not here to defend.
At the same time that we're about to bomb Venezuela over alleged cocaine that doesn't come into the United States.
This is all I'm going to say.
He pardoned the guy who did bring cocaine.
All I'm going to say is this. I'm not going to defend all of President Trump's decision. That's not my role.
Okay, but that's a disgusting one, Arthur.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you.
In today's video, Ana Navarro destroys Arthur Aidala on Newsnight with Abby Phillip. This debate blows up instantly as Ana Navarro challenges Arthur Aidala with hard facts, like DEA data showing fentanyl entering through Mexico, not Venezuela, exposing how shaky his talking points really are. She also ties Trump's pardons to real documented cases of traffickers and insiders getting special treatment, adding weight to her argument about corruption and credibility in US policy. It's sharp, fast, and Arthur Aidala never finds solid ground. So let's dive in and watch how Ana Navarro shuts down Arthur Aidala on Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
I know for a fact that Eric Adams, in the beginning of him being vociferous, was told specifically, shut your effing mouth. When President Biden gets reelected, we'll help you. But right now, shut your effing mouth. And that was by the highest people in the United States of America, Democratic Party. And he couldn't shut his effing mouth because New York City, where I live, was getting crushed, right? And handling cases in the
Can I ask a follow-up question just to clarify?
Sure, of course. It's your show. You can ask whatever you want.
All right. I don't want you to think I'm interrupting you. I just want to understand.
Interrupt away.
President Biden would help him with the border situation or with his alleged crimes?
No, it wasn't with his alleged crime.
It was with the border.
Yes, and he was asking for a lot more help. Because, look, I don't want to betray any confidence between the mayor and I, but my question to him was, I go, Eric, you got Schumer from Brooklyn, and you got Jeffries from Brooklyn, and you're from Brooklyn. Like, you can't figure this out? And he's like, I can't. I'm not getting any help. And he needed help. He needed financial help. And my point is this, Abby, I've handled now dozens and dozens, I'm not going to exaggerate, say hundreds, of cases in the Southern District of New York. So I know the kind of people they go after. I know the kind of cases they go after. Menendez, which you mentioned, that's a great example. Gold bars, cash, Mercedes-Benz. That's what they go after. Upgrades on flights and upgrades in hotels. And
yeah, but the Cuellar situation is more than upgrades on Turkish Airlines. And by the way, having flown Turkish Airlines, I wouldn't understand why you would want an upgrade.
The upgrades are very serious.
Listen, I think Trump really likes to flex. He likes the power.
And
he's become the
and he likes to be a hero. And
he's become the Oprah Winfrey of pardons. You get a pardon, and you get a pardon, you get a pardon.
And it's heroic.
Henry Cuellar also is a congressperson in a Congress that right now has a razor-thin Republican majority, and so every little vote matters.
Yes.
But I think we should take a look at, and we should talk about, if we're going to talk about pardons, something that makes no sense to me. It just doesn't, and I find it really abominable, which is the pardon that he did this weekend of the former president of Honduras, Hernandez, who did flood the streets of America with cocaine, who did get a $1 million bribe from El Chapo to allow passage through Honduras of cocaine up to the United States, who did boast that he was going to have cocaine shoved up the gringo's nose. This guy was serving a 45-year sentence. This guy was prosecuted and convicted for having brought a unfathomable 400 tons of cocaine into the United States.
I'm not here to defend.
At the same time that we're about to bomb Venezuela over alleged cocaine that doesn't come into the United States.
This is all I'm going to say.
He pardoned the guy who did bring cocaine.
All I'm going to say is this. I'm not going to defend all of President Trump's decision. That's not my role.
Okay, but that's a disgusting one, Arthur.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Arthur Aidala's claims are once you pull in the real-world context. Abby Phillip and Ana Navarro are right to press him because the narrative that Eric Adams was prosecuted as political payback just doesn't line up with the evidence. Federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York don't take marching orders from the White House. If anything, SDNY has a history of going after both parties hard. They prosecuted Michael Cohen under Trump, they prosecuted Menendez under Biden, and they're notoriously proud of their independence. If there were political pressure, someone inside SDNY would have leaked. It's their culture. And Ana brings in a crucial point about pardons. If we're going to talk about selective prosecution or political motivations, the Honduras case is impossible to ignore. Juan Orlando Hernandez wasn't some low-level figure. He was a head of state whose own brother was convicted on trafficking charges. U.S. court filings detail the 400 tons of cocaine moved through Honduras with his knowledge. That's not speculation. That's sworn testimony from DEA informants and federal investigators. So the idea that Trump is tough on crime while pardoning someone implicated in massive trafficking operations blows a hole straight through the MAGA talking points. Meanwhile, Arthur's argument conveniently avoids the fact that fentanyl, which is central to all these political claims, doesn't come from Venezuela at all. DEA's public data shows the overwhelming majority enters through Mexico and is synthesized with Chinese precursors. There's simply no intelligence record supporting this fantasy pipeline that MAGA pundits keep invoking. When you zoom out and stick to the documented facts, Abby Phillip and Ana Navarro are standing on solid ground, and Arthur Aidala is basically building a case on vibes and political mythology.
All I'm saying is President Trump has an empathy and a sympathy and compassion that no other president of this country has ever had, because he sat in a courtroom
For
and
white-collar
he heard not guilty.
Yes.
Rana, there is an epidemic of white-collar crime that is on the receiving end of pardons. It's only been 11 months since Trump has been in the White House.
Oh, surely it's been longer than that.
They just announced the pardon of another guy, a top entertainment executive who literally was just charged this year by Trump's own DOJ. What's up with the sympathy for white-collar criminals, the fraudsters, the Ponzi scheme
You
guys?
know, it takes one to know one. I mean, there's a pay for play kind of a situation happening in this government. You know, it's something in my world, in economics and in the markets, it's starting to be written about as what's called, it's kind of a wonky term, the EMification of America, the emerging marketification of America, because this is the kind of thing.
That's not a compliment.
It's not a compliment. It's the kind of thing that you used to, you know, in places we used to call third world countries, you know, this is the kind of behavior that you would see. Now you're seeing it in the U.S. A lot of the emerging markets are actually cleaning up their act. Now you're seeing an influence. You can buy your way to a pardon. You can buy your way into a corporate deal. I mean, there are dozens of examples of the president's own family getting involved in deals that, frankly, you know, are very dodgy, particularly in areas like crypto, for example, which could end up triggering the next financial crisis. And then we're going to see a lot of what's been happening behind the scenes.
Abby, I want us to go to that Wayback Machine. You know, in 2006, I was the executive director of the House Dem Caucus. And in that election, that midterm election, it was a wave election for Democrats. And part of the message from Democratic Party was that there's a culture of corruption that is effusive across Washington, D.C. Donald Trump is adding to that culture of corruption with all of these various pardons.
Well, do we forget that the former president pardoned his son?
But regardless of...
so we're just going to put that in the back burner. We're going to forget about that.
But we know this president pardoned 1,000 people who beat the living hell out of people on January 6th, who smeared feces across the Capitol building. Think about if, you know, for many of us, we think about, had many of those folks been black folks, or brown folks. It would have been the bloodiest day in the history of this country. But this president just said to those folks,
and that messaging won you 2024. It didn't. The reality is, if you talk about what the president is actually doing when it comes to pardons,
and we've seen it work right now in some of these special elections.
Abby Phillip and Jamie Harrison are pointing to something we've seen become a pattern, the way Trump's pardons blur the line between justice and political loyalty. And the facts absolutely back that up. Independent watchdogs like the Project on Government Oversight have documented that a huge portion of Trump's clemency decisions went to people with political connections, wealthy allies, or those who publicly supported him. That's not compassion. That's favoritism dressed up as mercy. And when Harrison Fields tries to frame Trump as uniquely empathetic, it just doesn't land when you look at the numbers. Trump issued far fewer pardons and commutations than most presidents overall, but a disproportionately high percentage of them went to white-collar offenders, cheats, fraudsters, and people tied directly to his inner circle. Meanwhile, thousands of non-violent drug offenders with no connections didn't even get a hearing. That selective compassion speaks for itself. Jaime is also right to frame this as part of a broader culture of corruption. Trump's own family members pursued foreign business deals while he was in office, something ethics experts warned could create massive conflicts of interest. Even Trump's post-presidency ventures like the crypto partnerships surrounding Truth Social raised red flags for financial analysts who worry that unregulated speculation could destabilize markets. And the January 6th pardons, that's not law and order leadership. That's rewarding violence against democracy. Any attempt to spin that as giving people a second chance ignores the real danger those actions posed. Abby and Jaime are simply calling the pattern what it is.
These are the
American
flashy
people are
pardons. These
tired
are the
of
ones
us.
that catches the news. When you look at what's actually happening, you have Alice Marie Johnson, someone who the president pardoned in his first term, who's overseeing a large majority of all these pardons, giving a second chance to countless Americans who would be left in the shadows in a dark, cold prison cell. This president is giving these people extra life. Alice Marie Johnson is the best testament
a lot of these
why is he
billionaires
overshadowing it with these other pardons? Why is he pardoning a drug trafficker? Why is he pardoning somebody that his own DOJ just prosecuted? Why is he pardoning somebody who was convicted of $1.7 billion in fraud?
If you look at a lot of these cases.
So why is he pardoning somebody who he and his family are in business with?
If you look at a lot of these cases, what you happen to be telling is half the truth. If you look at the actual details, some of these are over prosecutions. Some of these are crimes that would have never been prosecuted if it wasn't because
Honduran drug trafficker.
that is a whole nother. It's not going to take 3 minutes
By
in
the
the
way,
segment to actually look at that.
who was the lead investigator
There was a
in the
larger
Honduran president's case?
There was
It
a larger geopolitical issue there. This was a
Trump
right
is trying to influence the Honduran election.
This was the previous
by
administration.
pardoning someone from
Of course, it's Joe Biden's
pardoning
What I'm
someone
saying,
from
the
this guy's
previous
political party, but
administration
he's a drug
tried
trafficker.
to make an example out of this person. And if
Hold
you
on
look
a
at who
second.
testified
Like I
against
said-
him,
like I said,
it was drug lords
Anna just pointed out that
extradited
the
to the United
Honduran
States of
president's
America.
brother was prosecuted in the part of the scheme, prosecuted by Emil Bove. That's Trump's former lawyer. He's now in the Trump administration right now. So,
No,
And you guys tried to take him out.
I'm sorry. Now he's on the court.
And
Now
you
he's on the
guys,
court.
and you had
So-
a
So are you
media-
really trying to argue? You were just talking about us defending drug traffickers. Are you trying to defend a drug trafficker?
I'm not. If you look at the facts of the case, you talk about there's a lot of holes in that case. They try to make an example out of this person. I don't know
Filled
all the
with
facts,
cocaine.
but what I can tell you,
Holes filled with cocaine.
I gotta leave it there.
What Abby is pushing back on here is something that keeps getting overlooked any time these second chance talking points come up. The reality that Trump's pardon record wasn't random compassion. It was heavily tilted toward people with power, wealth, or political usefulness. And that's not speculation. That's been documented by groups like the Sentencing Project and various federal watchdogs. When nearly half of your pardons go to political allies, wealthy donors, or people tied to your business dealings, it stops looking like justice and starts looking like favoritism. And Harrison's argument about over prosecutions just doesn't hold up when you look at the actual cases. The individuals Abby is referring to weren't small-time offenders swept up unfairly. One of them pulled off one of the largest financial frauds in US history, $1.7 billion, with real victims who lost retirement savings, homes, and entire businesses. Another wasn't just loosely associated with drug trafficking, they were linked to a transnational network that US agencies had been tracking for years. These aren't borderline cases, they were major criminal operations. And the idea that this was all some geopolitical overreach ignores how these investigations started. The Honduran drug trafficking case Harrison cites wasn't some politically motivated Biden-era pursuit. It began under the Trump administration's own DOJ, with prosecutors Trump himself appointed. That's on the record. So Abby's point hits the core issue. You can't frame this as fairness when the pattern shows powerful offenders getting relief, while everyday people with far lighter offenses stay locked away. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.